At the age of 16, I had nearly been stabbed because of the fact that I was affiliated and associated with gang members I shouldn't have been associated with, and they set me up. I basically vowed to myself that I didn't want young people to think this was okay. I'll put my children in private school, 110%. 110%. I will put them in that private school. I'm aware of how much my life had changed, and I exposed myself to a different environment and a different ecosystem. It allowed me to upskill in my perspective. It allowed me to upskill with how I interacted with particular individuals. My journey, my career would be limited if I'm not put in an institution that forces me to interact with other individuals. For anybody who's a speaker, the power is not in the mic, the power is in the room. If you want to be invited to the table, you cannot just be a motivational speaker. You have to be a structured teacher. So I just have to shout out Nigerians here, because Nigerians have this audacity and they've got this mentality that, they carry last. You can't carry last. The day that Nigerians carry last, you will never hear of it because they cannot.
Okay. Hi, Hayley. How are you?
I'm good, Danielle. How you doing?
Good. It's been a long time.
Long time.
And I'm really happy to have you on the Education Effect. I know that I think one of the first times that we met, actually, when we went to Wagamama's, and you were telling me about your story. And I remember just thinking, damn, what you've been through as a young person, I'm sure has contributed or added to not just who you are, but probably also contributed to some of your success today. But before we go into it, for those who don't know you, do you want to give an introduction?
Well, my name is Hayley Melinda Records. I'm a international keynote speaker. I'm an author of a book called Speak Up, and I am a child of God. I'm a wife. I speak life. That's what I do. I'd rather speak into someone's destiny than their destruction, and I'd rather speak future rather than their failure. So that's just basically what I do. Um, I love being able to educate from a different way outside of traditional education. I do a lot of work in the area of soft skills training, development. I do a lot of training in terms of emotional intelligence, spiritual intelligence. I'm bold about the fact that I'm a person of faith. I'm a Christian, and God is very spiritual, and I believe that there's spiritual principles that govern the earth. And I love to be able to bring awareness to that, and also allow people to understand that you can have a convergence of being a Christian and excellent at what you do. Um, I refer back to the scripture, which is in the book of Daniel, that those that know their God shall be strong and do exploits. And I like being able to teach people the strength and the infrastructure that they can obtain in their business, in their calling, in their marketplace calling, but then also being able to have an intimacy with God and being able to do exploits with what God's called them to do. So yeah, that's kind of what I do.
Amazing. And I love the fact that you quoted Daniel, because I feel like anytime I do think about you, I do feel like you are a Daniel, because one thing that you have been able to do is you've been able to speak to the secular and speak to those in the church. And I remember actually many years ago, you telling me how you were able to, I think one of your speaking opportunities that you had with like a company, you were basically preaching the word of God, but without saying the Bible. And you were just showing me how you were able to just use so much godly wisdom to speak truth without, saying Psalm 123. And I was just like, this is a gift, to be able to do that is amazing. So that's one thing that I have really seen from what you do. That's just really powerful. So yeah, welcome to the Education Effect. It's a pleasure to have you, girl. So I'm going to ask you, first question is, your schooling experience. Do you look at your schooling experience and feel that this contributed to success and who you are today, or was it something else?
110%. I'm so locked in with my schooling experience to the extent that I ended up being a school governor for my former secondary school up until last year. So I very much do give a lot of credit to the woman I am today, to where I went to secondary school in sixth form, and for different reasons. One, it exposed me to a wider burden that I still have today, which is young women. I went to an all-girls school. I believe in sisterhood. I believe in female empowerment, and it's because of the fact that I went to an all-girls school. I was severely bullied in school, and one of the things that I vowed to myself is that I would never allow anyone to feel what I felt in the times that I was bullied. And in terms of school experience, I had found that because of the fact that majority of the people who were in our school, we were from low socio-economic backgrounds. The borough that our school was in was the borough of Newham. Newham is the second poorest borough in London. And so the experience and the opportunities and the exposure was scarce. And it made me want to become a blueprint and become the blueprint for young Black girls who are coming from low socioeconomic backgrounds, specifically that they cannot be and they should not be limited by their environment. And it's one of the reasons why I actually build internationally. So a lot of people are kind of like, Haley, why are you so passionate about the international, the international, the international? It's because I grew up in an area that you weren't seeing anything international. You were only exposed in front of you. And unfortunately, what was in front of us was scarcity, poverty, knife crime, fraud. And I just didn't want that to be my story. So yeah, the schooling experience has definitely shaped a lot of who I am in a good way and a bad way, because I think a lot of the times um, you can see something, and I decided that what I saw wasn't my standard, where people believe that's the standard they settle for. And something I always say, you don't get the life you want, you get the life you settle for. And what I grew up with, I just decided I wasn't going to settle with that being my life. So yeah.
Wow. Okay, we're gonna definitely go into that. Especially looking at, did you see something different for you to know that this, what you're living, is not your standard? Like, there must have been something that you saw to make you realize that, oh, this isn't what I want. I want this.
So, so
Um,
it's, so it's
yeah.
interesting because this is where I have to bring in God, because at the age of 15, I didn't know myself to be a dreamer. But at the age of 15, there was a time when I had a dream every single day for 6 months of me speaking on stage. And I was speaking on very big stages and I was preaching the gospel. And I was talking about people getting right with God and, how God is real. And at the time, I was not a Christian. And when I'm having these dreams, I wasn't a Christian. I was just young, just kind of being like, no, whatever. If God is real, if he's not, I don't care, whatever. And I remember just if there's something that I did take away from the dream is speaking. And I got many different opportunities in school for me to kind of somewhat speak. So I remember kind of more or less being exposed to the young mayor. So I ran for young mayor of Newham when I was actually 16. And that was the first time I actually ever exercised public speaking, because I had to use speaking for my campaigning. I remember being burdened by young people, by the fact that young people, we were not exposed to good. At the age of 16, well, I had nearly been stabbed. And that's because of the fact that I was affiliated and associated with particular gang members I shouldn't have been associated with, and they set me up. They tried to put me in West Ham Park in Forest Gate. So going through something so traumatic, I basically vowed to myself that I didn't want young people to think this was okay. And from there, that's when I changed my environment. I changed the people I was around. I used to talk to a lot of boys who were affiliated with, gang affiliation, who were in people refer units, and I just decided to cut. That's what happened. I cut them all off when I got to year 11. Started putting my head down. Year 12, I started being more serious in terms. But in my latter secondary school years, that was actually the type of people I surrounded myself with. And the reason why I have to bring it up in terms of the dream is because every single time I felt like, okay, God, I don't know, like, is this my life? I'd always just have this dream in the back of my head that said, nah, you're called to speak. And the stages that I had seen in my dreams, I knew they were international. I knew they weren't in London. And the crazy thing is that some of the dreams that I was having are the same very stages I have spoken on across the world. So it's like the fact that God gave me that dream at the age of 15, before I even gave my life to Christ, before I even knew the fullness of who Elohim was and who God is, the creator, I always had that as a bit of a North Star. So that's been something that's really helped me navigate my kind of helped me. And the best I can say is I've just learned to live a life where I don't walk by eyesight, but I walk by insight. So I'm somebody that the best I can say is I'm somebody that a lot of people, I can't be around a lot of people because the way that I think doesn't typically make sense to the human eye. uh, because I typically walk by insight. I typically walk by something I feel that, is impressed on my heart. Some people call it premonition, but I'm somebody who very much walks a lot by insight, and it's worked for my career and my business. So yeah.
No, that's amazing. And I love what you've said there, in regards to the fact that God gave you that, because it's so funny, because it reminds me of how there's research that shows that when a young person knows where they're going and then can see how school and certain places and environments can help them get there, they're going to be a lot more focused in life. They're going to be a lot more motivated. And yours one came through a dream from God. Somebody else, it could be a teacher. I could be a teacher and be a prophetic, have a prophetic gift and see that, listen, you're going to go here. And just by saying that to that person, them imagining it, them seeing themselves as that, shows the power of like belief and then action now following through. So take us right back. Take us right back to your environment, give us a bit of a picture of the type of primary school you went to, the type of secondary school you went to, and then also your background, how the type of child you were as well in those settings.
Okay. Both my primary and secondary school were Catholic schools. So I went to a different nursery and I went to a different reception. So year 1, I went to a primary school called St. Helens in Plaistow. And then for secondary, I went to St. Angela's, which was, everyone from St. Helens was going to St. Angela's or St. Bond's, basically. That's basically that. So I followed the streamline, should I say. And I went to St. Angela's. And from when I was young, I knew I wanted to go to St. Angela's because all my cousins in the area were going all Angela's. And they were the cool girls. That's the best I could say it. Back in the day, if you was an Angela's girl, you were a cool girl. Like, we had a reputation. And the reputation was, we were, at the time, St. Angela's and St. Bond's were doing the best in terms of A-levels and GCSEs across the whole of Newham. So it was like, to get into that school, the discipline, you basically, you can't carry last there. That's the best way I can say it. And I had that. The best I can say is I had that, not necessarily a pride, but I had something on the inside of me that I never wanted to carry last. And actually, probably one of the reasons, I just have to shout out Nigerians here. It's probably one of the reasons why I love Nigerians, because Nigerians have this audacity and they've got this mentality that, they carry last. You can't carry last. You really, you can never, you can never. So the day that Nigerians carry last, you will never hear of it because they cannot. And I like that. I feel like I have that. I feel like I have this thing where I can't carry last. So anything that I did, I'm like, cool. So went to secondary school. Obviously, as I said, majority of the people in my school were Black. We had some Filipinos, we had some Asians. Majority of us were coming from interfaith type of households, majority of them being either Catholic or Pentecostal in terms of Christian. We had some who were Sikh, because obviously the catchment area, but majority of people were we had acknowledgement of God. And the reason why I have to basically put this in here is because our education system and our schooling system was heavily impacted by the fact that a lot of us actually came from God-fearing households. So there was also a level of awareness that, hey, you don't do certain things because that's not how a child of God acts, basically. So it was also a level of excellence in how we operated, not just in our behavior, but also in our grades. So obviously moved on now to sixth form. And sixth form, I started focusing a lot on my career. Sixth form was when I actually started speaking. So I was focused on A-levels, but I'm getting exposed and now I'm getting into a thing. And I didn't really focus as much in my year 13. And I remember that was the first moment I'd ever had a relationship with failure. It was that shame of the fact that, like, Hayley, how did you end up in clearing? How did you get into your
Why do you think that you didn't, like, what was going on in your life in that year that made you feel like you weren't able to achieve what you were achieving before?
I think definitely there was underlying an unhealthy relationship that I had, definitely, in terms of mental health. At the time, I was in my first ever relationship, should I say, the young relationships you get to in sixth form. I was going through puberty. I was going through a lot of emotions I didn't know how to handle, And then on top of that, I'm studying. Then on top of that, I'm trying to build a career. On top of that, I'm going to schools, motivating other students. This is when I actually now was going into other schools myself and actually running sessions. And I think I was generally so hungry for success. I was in a hustle mode, definitely in my year 13. I was going to events. I was networking like crazy. I was doing YouTube videos. Like, I was doing podcasts before the podcast even exists. I was interviewing so many people. Then me and my friend, still one of my friends to this day, we were filming a documentary about my speaking journey. So that's why I have so much footage of myself in my younger years, because that's what we were filming a documentary when I was in year 13, basically like, Hayley, you are going to be a big time speaker. Let's start filming you from now. But the unfortunate thing is, I think I was so hungry for success that I lost the power and I lost the insight of stewardship. I didn't care about year 13. I didn't care about what was currently now because I was so focused on vision and I wanted to be this big shot speaker in 10 years time that I basically felt like my current education wasn't going to be imperative to basically what God wanted to do with me. And I was really mentored within that time. And then some of my mentors were like, hey, you need to go back to university because as much as you want to basically work with different corporations and work with different schools, there's a level of language, vocabulary, and understanding of critical thinking that only university will unlock within you. I was focused on the vision that the current upskilling that I could tap into that would actually make me not just a better speaker, but would actually make me an authority. I think the key word is an authority. Education allows you to become an authority. There's something different when somebody says that they are says that they're a doctor in something, you now have to respect they're an authority. It means they are well studied. It means that they have done case studies, reviews. It means that there is a level of credibility and authority that I guess at the time just didn't really understand until I went back to university. I went back to university now, University of Kent. I studied sociology with social policy, did 3 years. The hardest 3 years of my life. The reason why I say it's hard is because of the mental battle I went through because I felt like I was wasting my time. Because I had already started my career. So because my career didn't necessarily need my degree, it was kind of a bit of a sacrificial like, God, I don't need this. But I understand for where I'm going, I do. And the amazing thing is that my last year of university was exactly a month after my final exam in university was when I got appointed to be a non-executive director for the brand board for Wagamama. And that's policy work because I'm doing board work and consultancy work and I study social policy. And it allowed me to definitely now I had some level of understanding with God that my degree was going to allow me to be in certain rooms that not necessarily because of my degree, but because best I can say it is this, I had learned the white man's language because I'd gone to a predominantly white institution. So because I'd gone to a predominantly white institution, I'm now learning from the white man text. When I think about Hayley pre-university, my language was very limited because all I knew was the environment of Newham. I had never lived outside of Newham. Even though I did move to Sussex, I was still, traveling around. I hadn't really locked in. So me being locking in for those 3 years allowed me to not just upskill in terms of like my critical thinking. It allowed me to upskill my language. It allowed me to upskill in my inclusion. It allowed me to upskill in my perspective. It allowed me to upskill with how I interacted with particular individuals. It allowed me to understand that my journey, my career would be limited if I'm not put in an institution that forces me to interact with other individuals.
This is so good because my question that I was going to ask you, which has been answered, which was around, someone can listen to this and think, you were making money, you were getting opportunity, you were traveling with Action Jackson, you were learning on the go. Did you even need university? And you literally answered it when you said that actually, your mentors were actually telling you that you needed to go. And I was going to ask you as well, how has university helped you? But just your examples of just the opportunity, being on the board with Wagamama, the fact that your perspective changes, your language changes, you're really enlightening people on actually university is a lot more than just the degree and the certificate. There's other things that's going to help you. And even me now, I'm doing a doctorate. I don't even know how I even end up here because just trust me, I was never that girl. But it's obviously a God thing that he wants me to do. But even just my perspective on life, even my understanding within education is just so much more vast because it's true. I'm in an institution that is forcing me to come out of my reality and my bubble and actually learn more advanced knowledge and knowledge that's actually going to shape nations and shape information. So I really love what you said there. And I think definitely is going to help a lot of people in regards to thinking about whether university is something that they want to do, especially within the public speaking route. Because anyone can say public speaking, creative, you don't need university. So I think
I don't want to
Wow.
say you need university, but you need
Okay.
structure because of the fact that
Mm,
and also let me tell you something for anybody who's a speaker, the power is not in the mic, the power is in the room, the power is at the table.
mm,
And if you want to be invited to the table, you cannot just be a motivational speaker. You have to be a structured teacher. You have to be able to teach because really and truly, transformation doesn't actually happen in information. It happens in implementation. I didn't learn that until my latter years of in my 20s. And I learned that through university. I learned that in terms of how do you shift from inspiration to implementation. So if you ever come to my master classes now, most of the time I'm actually teaching. I'm not inspiring anymore. If you come into my actual spaces, I'm actually giving you curriculum. I'm actually teaching you and I'm actually shifting you. That is the reason why I'm very big on ensuring that, yes, not necessarily accreditation, but ensuring that, yes, get mentored, get coached, go to school, get educated. Even for me, like, I'm aware that even my traditional education route is not finished. I actually do want to go back into university, or whether it's to do a master's, whether to do an MBA, or whether to actually get a doctorate. I'm not somebody who's opposed to that. Before, I would have been like, I don't need all of that. But there is something that happens when you allow, there's something that one of my, like, he's like a mentor, big brother to me. His name is Jamal King. He says, your level of success is determined by your level of exposure. And I completely agree. I completely agree. And I find that because of the fact that I grew up in a low socioeconomic background, I grew up in a single parent household. I grew up with, listen, I grew up with certain people who I used to knock down ginger with. They're either dead or in prison. That's the type of remit and world that we came from. At the age of 23, I was one of the people that identified my cousin's body because unfortunately he was stabbed to death because of gang affiliation. That's the type of world that I come from, right? And I'm aware of the fact that going to university, both Sussex and to Kent, exposed me to worlds I never knew existed. I'd never heard of anything in terms of villages and Buckinghamshire. I'd never heard of people being able to know their local shopman. Yes, we know Bossman. We know our local shopman in terms of Bossman. I'm talking about they've got a local chippy. I'm talking about they've got the milkman that drops things. We never had that. And I think being exposed to one, actually having friends that were also Caucasian and British, I'm talking about white British, allowed me to be exposed to a different experience to my British experience. Because I'm Black, African, first generation, my husband is second generation, and going on the education point of view, my husband never went to university. My husband did an apprenticeship. So even how my perspective and how I view things is completely different to my husband. He never went to university and he never and even though he's well accomplished and he's done amazing things, even he actually can see where his understanding has been limited because he never went to an institution. Yeah, so we've had different conversations before. Even there was a time when I was in university and I was in my final year of university and he was wondering as to whether he should go to university. And I was saying
wow.
to him, I don't think you need to, and because I'm not the type of
Mm,
person that forces. Listen, university is expensive. I'm not the type of
trust
person that's like,
me. I'm not trying to encourage you to be in debt.
wanna do
It's
it. If you want
okay.
to do it, don't do it. Like, don't force yourself. But I did give him the opportunity to explore the option simply
Yeah.
because of the fact that we grow up in a and I wanted the reason why I wanted to do this, and I it's not even just because I love you and what you stand for. The reason why I wanted to do this is because I actually have a heart for education that I probably haven't been as face fronting on my brand before.
Mm, mhm.
But people assume that because of the fact that I've got a business and my business is scaling across the world and I'm blah 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 whatever is on my CV,
Mm,
people would assume that I don't value education. In fact,
mm.
to the extent that I know that when by the grace of God have children and me and my husband settle down and start having children, I'll put my children in private school.
Yeah.
110%. 110%. I will put them in that private school. I'm so sorry. I will betray the public school and I will put them in that private school.
You are exactly like Josh. Josh is pro private to the
A
core.
hundred,
He
a
will be
hundred
sending
ten
me
percent.
videos like, listen, £30,000 school fees. We're gonna do it. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, yeah, 110%. And the reason why is because of the fact that I'm aware of how much my life had changed when I exposed myself to a different environment and a different ecosystem. But I worked my bum off to get into an ecosystem. I worked my bum off to get into this type of network that I have now. However, a lot of these private school children, they went to school with that ecosystem. whether it's Boris Johnson, them lot all went Eton. There's an ecosystem, there's a network that only private school children basically are exposed to. And if it's not that they're necessarily going to a private school, I'd homeschool them.
If you're enjoying this conversation so far, then don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to comment your thoughts below and please subscribe. And don't forget to click that notification bell so that you're reminded every single Thursday for a new upload.
I personally would still want them in a traditional form of education. Reason being is because I think it's priceless in terms of friendship and emotional intelligence. I want my children to be able to build up emotional intelligence. No, I want you to know how it feels for somebody to be mean to you. Triggers. Exactly. I want that. Like in school, one of the reasons why I don't really talk about my secondary school is because of the fact that I was severely bullied at one point, and it really, really, really affected my confidence. Deeply affected my confidence to the extent that I didn't talk a lot about my former secondary school years. It's only in my latter years that I started talking about the fact that I got bullied. But the reason why is because I had a lot of shame and guilt about the fact that I got bullied, and I'm this, I don't know, don't want to say this speak or whatever, but I'm kind of tough, but I've actually built up a bit of a tough exterior because of what I went through. Oh no, I was bullied severely. It was bad. It got to the point where I begged and I cried to my mum to move back to Uganda. My mum was going to move me. She ended up having a dream. God told her, keep her in London because the destiny for your child is actually connected to the UK. And it makes sense in terms of now I'm looking at it. I'm like, oh yeah, if I went to Uganda at the age of 13, I wouldn't be able to do half the things I'm doing now. The reason why I share this is because I hated school in secondary school. I hated school. And now I can see an element of how, I believe in the devil and I believe in the enemy. I believe that, hey, that was actually something to deter me away from education and school. But then that experience in terms of bullying has made me so compassionate. And it's made me so compassionate towards young people. The only school that I typically do speak in is my former secondary school, and I don't charge. When a school typically asks me to come in, I won't charge because I see it as a give back to the young people and the young version that I know I needed, the things I needed to hear when I was in school. And it's one of those things that, that experience of bullying, it did allow me to be more emotionally intelligent. It did allow me to sit with my emotions. It did expose me to a school within myself that most young people get stripped of now because they're exposed to the digital world. And, I go to a lot of schools and I work with a lot of young people, and I'll ask them what they want to be. Some of them want to be influencers, and I'm not against that. I'm not against any career path. It's just unfortunately the unrealistic expectation and the unrealistic journey. Because I have people who come to me all the time saying they want to be speakers. And when I give them the honest truth of what it has cost me to build my career, my business, I'm like, I don't know if you actually want to. I think you like the idea of speaking. I don't know if you want to speak. It's like, I'm tired. Like, I'm literally like, yo, I want to retire before 30 in a way. Like, I'm like, God, I want to, like, at the age of 30, like, I probably want to be, I'll probably always be doing speaking, but I was like, cool, I'll give my 20s to my speaking career. That's something that I've said. I'll give 20s to my speaking career. Then from 30, maybe I'll be a nun somewhere. No, I can't be a nun because I'm married, but I can't be a nun anyway. I'm married, but I mean it in a sense of like, be visible, cool, give it your all, whatever. And then when I'm 30, we'll see. Education is so layered, and it's actually very important, actually, very imperative.
I love this. I love this shifting of perspective, and I guess just looking at education as a wider concept. I think when I tell people I'm passionate about education and stuff, I think they think I care about A stars and Bs. That's not what I care about. I care about young people being exposed to what they are going to do in the future, and then understanding the steps to get there. That's what I care about.
Yeah.
And I want to touch a little bit more around when you were young, around what you thought you wanted to be in the future. And when did speaking come, and how was that introduced to you?
I wanted to be a teacher.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be a head teacher, actually.
Wow.
And then I wanted to be a lawyer.
I can see that.
I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be a teacher. And then I was like, all right, I don't want to read, so I didn't want to do law. So I gave up on that dream because my cousin did law, my god sister did law, and I was seeing how much books she was reading in uni. I was like, I ain't reading that. So forget about it. And then in terms of teaching, at the time that I actually was deciding that I wanted to actually go into teaching was actually when I got first exposed to motivational speaking. So I saw it as I get the opportunity to teach young people, but I'm not limited to one classroom. So that's what shifted me into speaking, because when I first started speaking to schools, and I was passionate. I'm still passionate about young people. And I was like, okay, cool. I get the opportunity to teach, but I'm just not limited to a classroom. So that's how I looked at speaking. And so that shift for me in terms of speaking happened when I was 15, 16. So when I first got exposed to the whole idea of it, and I got exposed to it through school speaking from speakers who were coming into my school and speaking. And I was like, oh, oh, that's cool. And then that's how I kind of shifted into speaking.
How important was it for you to, one, know what you wanted to be at that age, 15? And how important was it for that opportunity with Action Jackson? When you look back at who you are today, what you've done, all your accomplishments, the success, how important was that? You
Yeah.
figuring it out that you want to be a speaker and then having that opportunity to follow him.
Yeah. The amazing thing is I actually met Jackson when I was 11 or 10. I met him when I was in year 6. You know, he's the one of the people I talk about in my book, but he's also one of the people who's my endorsers, my physical written endorsers for my book. And it's interesting because me and Jackson have done events together now. You know, I've had the opportunity to fly him to Dubai to do some work with me in Dubai. It's just amazing, just being able to even be still connected with him in that way. But I would say in terms of Jackson, I talk on me and Jackson. The reason why I'll say that I'm so grateful for mentorship is because I didn't have a dad. My dad passed away when I was 3. And I deeply needed an older male figure to basically just somewhat keep me a bit in check. Because I had a lot of reverence for Jackson. I still do. But when I was younger, he really stood as a father figure for me. Jackson was used definitely in my younger years. And I've always said to Jackson, I want to be used by the grace of God for you in your latter years. And that is my hope, that I can always just be a reminder to him of the power of planting seeds and what those seeds can become if you're consistent, because he planted the seed in me when I was 10 and I'm 28. You know, so this is one 18-year-old watering and seeding. And he will talk to my husband, he will message me, he'll encourage me. And, you know, he's someone who I deeply love. And I feel like it was so important because it became your North Star. And something I always say is I don't think I'm better than people, but I know I'm better than that. And what I mean by that is that there's certain behaviors, certain rooms and certain things that I know I'm better than. So you'll never see me there because I know I'm better than that. I know I'm better than that. I know that I'm better than certain things. Like, so you're not going to see me. I'm not someone who's outside. Like, it's very rare you'd ever see me outside. And it's not because I think I'm better than them. It's because I know there's certain rooms and certain things that hey, this is going to be a waste of time. You need to be focusing here. So I sacrificed my 20s. I already know my 20s was for my career. It's something my husband's aware of. It's something that God is aware of. It's something that I said to God, I will give you my 20s. I'll give my 20s to push ministry. I'll give my 20s to push my business. I'll give my 20s to my career. And then my 30s, definitely in terms of like family, legacy stuff, this is me really doubling down and doing what God has called me to do. And, you know, having that focus from the age of 15. Also, can I say that it's very, very, very unlikely you are meeting a woman in the area of speaking who has the level of experience I have at the age I'm at now. Because I'm 28 and I started at 15 and I started doing corporate speaking at 20, I have 8 years of experience working with C-suite leaders for the age of 30. So now when I'm going in and I'm working on a Gen Z, so I do a lot of work in terms of Gen Z training, and I do a lot of work in terms of helping Gen Z retention in different organizations or corporations. I'm typically the youngest trainer, the youngest speaker, the youngest consultant working with. I'm typically the youngest consultant that majority of people are working with. And I'm typically the youngest keynote speaker. And they always get shocked because it's like the age doesn't make sense for the experience. So when they're kind of like, how is it that, you know, in terms of my testimonials, you have like the CEO of Chanel endorsing you, you have like Bloomberg endorsing you, you've worked with Microsoft, Google, Clifford Chance. How is it that you have all of this clientele? It's because of the fact that at the age of 15, I made a decision. At the age of 18, my decision, I was going to focus on my career. I was going to be outside. I was going to be networking. I was going to be shooting my shot. I was going to be sending out emails. When some of my friends were going out, getting drunk, going to the clubs, I wasn't there. I basically said, I'm going to sacrifice my social time for me to be able to have my business time. And by the grace of God, my friends now who did the fun I get the opportunity to actually be like, you know what, let me just help you, because I sacrificed basically all those years so that you don't have to go through a level of sacrifice that I went through. So there's some of my friends who are building their brands and building their businesses way quicker than I was, because I sacrificed basically the years that they were doing their thing, basically get the knowledge and get mentored and to be exposed. And I don't regret it. I don't regret it. I mean, some people will be like, maybe because of the fact that before Christ, I was very active. I had a very wild teenage years. When I was in Sussex, I was in the clubs. Like, before I gave my life to Christ, that 1 year that I was in Sussex University, that 1 year, so much happened in that 1 year. But yeah, that having that focus from young allowed me to have, the key word here is leverage. And I'm so grateful that the fact that I started young, I have leverage that not many people my age have, and not many people in my industry have. I have an actual unique advantage that I know that I use. So yeah.
I love what you have just said. It gets me so excited, like just hearing your story and everything that you're saying, because I literally believe that this is why people that are from affluent backgrounds, people that are from rich backgrounds, this is the capital that they have.
Yeah.
When you're from these, middle class to upper class backgrounds at home, they're sitting around looking at the financial economy of this nation. They're talking about how the child is going to come and work at their dad's office. These are literally leveraging at 10, 12. I remember teaching I've taught in private schools and I've taught in secondary schools. And I also when I was a student, I went to state secondary school, and I also went to a private girls' school. So I've literally seen both ends, both lives, and the conversations is so different. You go to when I was in a state school, it's like, what do you want to be? Don't know. Like whatever you see around, this one's doing beauty, maybe I'll just do that.
Yeah.
But go to a private school, they're like, oh no, I'm going to take over my dad's company, and then we're going to expand the dealership across different countries. Like, it's such a normal conversation, and it's very, very common like that amongst private school kids. Their language is so different, and I love what you said, because that is literally leverage. I'm just remembering a DM that I got the other day, a student that I taught. And he literally DM'd me saying that because I can't obviously disclose what he's doing, but he is basically creating a huge exhibition, right?
Wow.
That is going to involve a lot of creatives. That's probably all I can say. And lots of things, right? And you would think it's probably, if you look at the organization, you would think it's probably a middle-aged white man and his team. Meanwhile, this is a young student. He's definitely under the age of 18. Right. And he's just letting me know. Yes. And he's letting me know. He's like, Miss, you got to come. I thought of you. And I'm just like, the mind, where these kids are at, right, in terms of people that are from privileged backgrounds, the leverage that they have, it's insane. And I think listening to your story and how God had to inspire you, essentially. God had to put it in your mind, put it in your dream. You obviously had to work hard to navigate, okay, what decisions am I going to make? It's very similar to the interview that I had with this guy called Jerry as well, where, when other people are similar to you, when other people were partying and whatnot, he was networking with his rich friends' dads. Do you know what I mean? Trying to understand, how did you get into what you got into? And I think when you have a goal, or when you are inspired enough to have some sort of idea on what you want to do, that is able to drive you.
For sure.
And that's why I think it's so important for schools and education to really look at things around career development. Like I told you right now, I'm doing my doctorate, and that's what I'm studying. That's what I'm looking at in terms of how does exposure to careers, your future, opportunities, how does that exposure change your belief in what you're going to do in the future, change your actions? And you're literally an example of that. Like, you're an example. There's so many people, but you are literally an example of that. You're an example of somebody who was exposed, right time, right place. Do you know what I mean? You could have gone to another school, and not had no public speakers coming to your school. Because I didn't have no public speakers coming into my school. No one was inspiring me. People always ask me, who's your inspiration? I'm like, I'm my inspiration, because I didn't see nobody's life and I wanted it. So I'm like, nah, I don't want that. But like, imagine, like, it was right place, right time. You could have grown up in Uganda, different situation here. that we'll be talking about. Your drive would have been navigated to something else. And that's why I'm so passionate, because, you know, you spoke about how your area was the second
Poorest borough
was
in
it the
London.
second highest for poverty? Yeah, in London. And then meaning that majority of people are from low socioeconomic backgrounds. And it's just, I'm too passionate about this, man. My friends keep telling me, they're like, oh, you love education, but me, I'm just so passionate about this, because I'm just like, this is literally the key. Obviously, God is the key. God is the answer. But but this is literally like the tool that I think that if schools from poor backgrounds can just understand that, listen, we get Pythagoras theorems and we get the science and all of that, but I'm telling you, if we can just help young people know what they want to be in the future, or give them some sort of insight, that you don't have to aspire to just be the people on social media. Like, you're very good at analyzing. You can be a data tech consultant. I think if we just shift their minds, so many people are going to come out of, you know, their social class and move up on the scale, right?
Let me just share, there's a scripture when I was in prayer, when God told me to go back to university, like specifically God, because all the mentors were saying, but I didn't go until God spoke to me. And I remember I was in a time of prayer and God spoke to me about Daniel 1. And the Bible says that Daniel had to study for 3 years before he can serve in the king's palace. And a scripture that I loved was, those who are diligent in their work shall stand before kings, not mere men. And I heard the Spirit of God say to me, Hayley, you will not have access to the palace if you lack in study. And there, one of the things that God had said to me was Daniel had been well studied in the area of linguistics, language. And then God said, there's a language you will pick up when you go to university. And in that language, you will be appointed to kings. And literally, it was my first big speaking engagement, my biggest, my career shifted when I was in university. It's because I had a level of insight, language. I had a level of infrastructure with my keynotes. That's why I gift, something I always say is that, listen, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. I understood that I was talented, but I needed to put in work in terms of how I communicated. My university experience allowed me to be an effective communicator, because I now had to increase my vocabulary. And I'm doing sociology. Sociology was exposing me to cultures and trends. Sociology allows you to be able to understand societies in different cultures. So now I'm being able to understand subculture. So now I can go to up north and speak to people in Bradford and be able to understand the language of Bradford and understand the language of East London, understand what's happening in city in New York in terms of Manhattan. Or if I need to go to downtown, I learned that through subcultures in sociology.
Everyone needs to study sociology, because what? Like, sociology is before studying sociology, I wanted to be an actress. Performer. Yeah. That's me. Once I studied sociology, I was like, wait a minute. So the textbook is trying to tell me that because I'm Black, because I'm from this kind of background, I'm less likely to do well. And I started to see that people around me are falling into self-fulfilling prophecy, and they're not involved.
Yeah. So studying
sociology, they're not even aware.
Yeah, I want to go back into studying sociology. In fact, anything, I want to go back to studying psychology, because I'm dealing with so many human, the way that people think and the way that people behave. It makes me so curious. I'm so like, oh wow.
Yeah, I get it. Because even me, I didn't study psychology in A-level, but I have been thinking about getting the A-level textbook and being like, let me just teach myself some psychology, because I always want to know, why do you behave like that? And it's not just always environment. Sometimes it's internally what's going on. My last question for you is, looking back, what do you think could have helped you? Because I feel like you've gotten a lot of help, clearly, in terms of who you are today. But do you look back and think that, you know what, school could have maybe done this that would have helped me learn something earlier, or helped me gain some insight earlier, or even just other young people at that age, if only this was implemented, if only this was talked about more? What do you think that is?
You know what, I studied art for GCSE, and something that I feel like my school, they weren't bad at it, but they weren't the best at it. I would have told them to be better advocates for creativity. Because I think that creativity unlocks a part of your brain that allows you to learn in a whole different way. So in music, or, you know, I'm happy that we had music in school and stuff like that, but I feel like it's something that should have been a bit more emphasized in terms of creativity, especially because of the amount of people who I know that went to my secondary school who are now in creative fields, and they had to really work. And, you know, what I do is kind of somewhat creative in a way. Like, it's not something that's in the traditional, like, you know, an accountant or, you know, a lawyer. It's actually kind of more so in the creative route. And I definitely would say like education sometimes is not inclusive of creativity. I think it's very much inclusive on traditional kind of accountancy or lawyer or science, maths, English. And I think it's not considering the creative elements of education that actually makes somebody actually sharper at what they do. I know it's something that is big in America, but not so big here, is free speech. So I know that in terms of the education system, their way of teaching is very much critical thinking, less debate, less discuss. Even when you look at it in terms of movies, schools, teachers are very much engaged with, you know, the students. And even in terms of how they do exams, it is quite subjective. Where I feel like American teaching and American education system, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is more subjective with how they teach, but British is more objective. It's way more objective. Very binary. That's why people in the UK, no disrespect, they have binary of thinking. Most of my British friends, whenever I speak to them about my career, they'll be like, oh, are you going to be in Dubai or London? There's never Dubai and London. Are you going to be in London or US? It's never, are you going to be in the US and London and Dubai? It's very binary. What do you mean you want to build across the intercontinent? What are you talking about? Yeah. Because the way British people are, we're like, box.
Yeah.
So we don't understand it. You can't understand the bridge. It's not. Whereas American people, they're like, yeah, I want to build in Chicago, Atlanta. I want to build in Africa. Like they believe that the whole of Africa is a country. Like, they are so the way that they think, but
global minded.
Like, literally. And it's like, it's just so interesting because you see the effects of, because I have a lot of American friends, that's the reason why I can say it. I've got a lot of American friends and I have a lot of British friends, and I see the way my American friends think, and I see the way my British friends think. My American friends may not be the most educated in general knowledge. They may not be able to tell you where Thailand is. They may not be able to tell you where Thailand is, but they can give you a 3-point paragraph on basically why racism is the foundation of mental slavery within America. But a British person can tell you where Thailand is, who the former president of Thailand was, but they may not necessarily be able to point out the limiting beliefs that they have become accustomed to because of their environment. It's a very interesting thing, and that's why I love sociology, and that's why I love psychology, because I love being able to look at societies and how different human behaviors, and how the American subculture in Atlanta is completely different to the subculture in New York, and the subculture in LA is completely different to a subculture here in London. It's one of the reasons why I love to travel the way that I do, because I love being exposed to subcultures. I love it so much. But yeah.
Oh, Hayley, this was so good. I love this conversation. It's been such a pleasure having you on. I know that people are definitely going to be able to take things away for themselves, reflecting on their past, but also hopefully people with children can also be thinking as well about what they need to do to pour into their child to ensure that their child's on the best stead. So thank you so much, Hayley.
Thank you so much, Danielle. I appreciate it.
If you enjoyed this conversation, then do not forget to subscribe, join the Education Effect family, and I can't wait to see you with my next guest.